in Indianapolis, Indiana, outside of the Eiteljorg Museum of Western Art and the American Indian. This is one of the best collections of Western artifacts in the country, even though it's in Indiana. It's very cool. I have a separate video on the special exhibit here, Jingle Rails, and let's go inside. So this is the outside of the Eiteljorg Museum. Looks a lot like an Adobe style building. Very out of place here in the middle of Indianapolis. There's a big statue of a Native American outside. The museum is named for Harrison Eiteljorg, a wealthy businessman in the mining industry who collected much of what is here. First, we're going to take a look inside the Western Art Gallery, starting with an original bronze of Frederick Remington's famed Bucking Bronco, cast in 1895. There is a lot of Remington in this collection. This is an 1893 oil painting called A Buck Jumper. A portrait of Bill Pickett, a famed Oklahoma rodeo champion who had African American and Native American heritage. George Carlson's I'm the Drum, in which he attempted to imitate a combination of a Rodin and a Remington sculpture. This is a newer painting called Land with No Time. This depicts Lewis and Clark at Eagle Creek by Thomas Hart Benton, painted in 1967. Benton did do a lot of uniquely American scenes. And a favorite in the collection, a gigantic three-piece panorama of the Grand Canyon in October by Wilson Hurley. This depicts the Grand Canyon from the bottom level at the Colorado River. A Tesk Papoose Child, painted in 1916 by Robert Henri. Remington's Top of the Big Horns. Towards the end of his life, he started getting more experimental with the modernism that was beginning to get popular. A desert scene painted by Marsden Hartley in 1921. He claimed himself as a, quote, American discovering America. I like that. This is Georgia O'Keeffe's depiction of the Taos Pueblo, one of her earliest scenes of what would become many in New Mexico. Her Red Hills Beyond Abiquiu, which is where she ended up living on a ranch and painted all the beautiful scenery around her. Joseph Sharp's The Agency Store. Ernest Blumenschein's The Plasterer. He was a leader of the Tau Society. Blumenschein's The Penitents, which are small Spanish-American offshoots of the Roman Catholic Church only found in New Mexico. This is called The Sun Worshippers. This painting was used for advertising by the Santa Fe Railroad. Victor Higgins' Palo Duro Canyon, depicting the second largest canyon in the country, which is in the Texas Panhandle. A Visit to the Louvre, which is supposed to be a visual dialogue about what the French thought of an 1845 exhibition in Paris of George Catlin's paintings of Native Americans. C.M. Russell was one of the most important Western artists, and this is an oil painting done in 1913. This depicts the Blackfoot Nation's Thunder Pipe Ceremony, which takes place after the first storm in the spring. A more modern one, called An American Family, painted in 1974. This depicts a boat of Chinese immigrants arriving in San Francisco in 1865. Stillwater Crossing, I really like this one. The Dance of the Mandan. A sculpture by Harry Jackson named Plantain. This is called the Americanization of California. This was done by a Hispanic artist in 1835 and would have been made for a church. This is Bartering for a Bride, depicting a fur trapper mountain man attempting to arrange for a native bride, painted by Alfred Jacob Miller in 1845. This artist would depict the natives as savages and the white men as heroics, so this is a bit disturbing. Albert Bierstadt's High Sierras. He is one of the great American artists. Bierstadt's Halt in the Yosemite. His Indian encampment at sunset. Thomas Moran's incredible depiction of the Grand Canyon. Remington's The Cheyenne, cast in 1901. The Scalp, cast in 1901 by Frederick Remington. And even more original Remington casts. Castle Geyser in Yellowstone. Early on, Remington would often paint black and white oil paintings. Remington initially found success because of Theodore Roosevelt. Roosevelt was writing articles for Century Magazine about ranch life and hunting out west, and Remington created 61 paintings for these articles. C.M. Russell's Buffalo Hunts. C.M. Russell did a lot of rather small statuary, and they have some examples. The Cow Country, painted in 1928. This painting is of the Heart Mountain Japanese internment camp in Wyoming, which I have been to, and it was painted by a man while incarcerated there in 1945, and some of the colors were created by coal dust and rice paste because he didn't have access to paints. These are some artifacts of the Miami. The Miami would have been in this area throughout Indiana. Some of these are more recent and reproductions. There's some really old arrowheads and artifacts. Timeline along here. So here you have the Europeans, and now they pretty much don't exist. This is a really interesting artifact. This is a Treaty of Grenville peace medal. So after General Matt Anthony Wayne defeated the Miami at the Battle of Fallen Timbers, they're forced to sign an agreement, the Treaty of Grenville, that gave away a lot of the land to the United States. And this is the General Matt Anthony Wayne flag. Now, it's believed that this was created by the Native Americans, and part of the proceedings at the Treaty of Grenville signing was the presenting of flags, and it's believed that the Miami captured this later on in battle because they got a hold of it somehow. You see A. Wayne up there. It's a model of a big house that the Miami and other local tribes would have built for shelter. Some Delaware stuff too. That is the pen used by President Bill Clinton to sign legislation re-recognizing the Pokagon Potawatomi as an Indian tribe. They stopped recognizing most tribes. And really the exhibit goes into all the different Native American tribes throughout the country, and as we look, there's a lot of differences. These are some Cheyenne moccasins. Those are Cherokee. 1895 bandolier by the Ojibwe. This is a saddle made by the Plains Cree, which is a tribe in like northern Canada, like Saskatchewan and Manitoba. This is a horse mask. Mandan shirt, Northern Plains. This is Crow. This is all Sioux. They do incredible beadwork on their clothing and objects. And this is a replica of what a Plains teepee might look like. This is Lakota and Blackfeet art. A cradle board of the Flathead tribe. I think they're in Montana. These are all artifacts of the Nez Perce. They're in northern Idaho and like eastern Oregon and Washington. An incredible headdress. This one was made in 1940 by the Salish. Never heard of them. Look at that guy, he's got a guitar. That's unusual. Here's a bunch of pottery from the Southwest tribes. There's a lot of different ones in New Mexico. Some of these are Navajo, I think. Baskets. Now what a lot of the Pueblos in New Mexico do is they carve figures like this. Hopi Katsina figures. Some Southwest dress and weavings. This is interesting. It's manifest destiny, you know. If you put a quarter in, you get $1, or sometimes nothing. I guess this is kind of to prove how berated the native cultures had become, and unfortunately it's out of order. That's a really cool concept. Some baskets and weavings of the Apache and other tribes there in California. The Paiute. And the Ute. It's interesting, that one has eyes. And on the right, that's a tobacco bag. And a Ute or Ute cradle. I've heard both. I'm sorry if I mispronounce them. Here's a bunch of Tlingit artifacts. There's spoons, spoon mold, a giant spoon. They have cool spoons. Here's some carvings. And basketry of the Tlingit and Haida, Naka, Nootka. Has a whale transformation mask. See, it looks like a whale on the outside, but there's a different face inside there. Interesting. This is the same people who carve totem poles. The Tlingit also makes some really creepy masks. An Inuit carving. These are the people who are up in the Arctic area. They carve a lot of this out of whalebone, but also stone. This is whalebone carving. And UPM masks. This is the Legend of Wasco, a red cedar totem pole made in 1996. It's a recreation of a traditional 19th century one. Oh, this thing really is incredible. There's a sculpture outside the museum. And there's like a wavy glass wall. Another sculpture of a Native American woman. So that was the Eiteljorg Museum. You definitely should visit if you're in Indianapolis. It is one of the greatest collections of Western art and artifacts that I have ever seen, and it is very much worth your time. If you like this video, you like the Old West, I have a lot of videos in the Old West at attractions and museums. I just have a bunch of roadside attractions and all that good stuff. I've got a lot of videos, please check those out, and thanks for watching.